All right, welcome everybody. It's Monday night. Jamie and I are back again, and we are so excited. We have a friend on with us tonight.
Hey guys, everybody say hello to Katherine. She's going to be telling us her story tonight. She has an amazing story, and she is a recovery coach and a woman in recovery also. So, and an
Yes.
addiction counselor.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us tonight, Katherine. So maybe we could just so you guys know, like, let us know where you're watching from, whose page you're on, because we're broadcasting from multiple places right now, which is just so cool that we can do that. Hey, Jarrett. And if you guys have any questions for her, like while she's telling her story or about her recovery or anything that you want to know, just drop it in the comments and we'll get to y'all's questions as we go on. Oh, Jarrett's from South Florida. Okay.
Awesome.
I think that's where you're at too, isn't it?
I am. I'm in South Broward.
Nice. All right. Well, so let's just start from the beginning, right? Like, where did it begin for you?
I think for me, it began before I ever picked up drugs and alcohol. It was people. I think I used people. And, I was in a home where my grandparents had me a lot of the time. And if my mom wouldn't give it to me, then my grandma would. And if my grandma wouldn't give it to me, my daddy would. And if my daddy wouldn't, my poppy would. And I would keep going from person to person until I got what I wanted. And I learned to manipulate at a very young age.
Yeah.
I think that's where it began.
I can totally relate to that too, because when I was an only child, so being an only child, like I could get whatever I wanted from people, and it teaches you like these manipulation skills, right? Which is now like an asset, not the manipulation side of it, but my people skills.
Right.
So where do you think, so where did the addiction side of it begin?
I think that, I started using, I was a cheerleader in high school. I grew up in a good home. I had, my grandmother owned a beauty salon for 30 years. My mom's a nurse. My father was a lawyer. I was the only child for about 7 years. And then I had my first brother. And then when my mom and dad divorced, there was this sense of rejection. And in high school, I was very determined, very ambitious. I didn't make the cheerleading squad when I first tried out. It was mascot. So I kept pushing myself harder and harder. I learned to tumble and, be a gymnast, and I was at every game. And then I made the cheerleading squad, and I was flipping down the floor, and I broke my hand. My finger went the wrong way, and bones were sticking out, and I was prescribed opiates at 15.
Wow.
And that made me feel really good, and I liked them. And of course, the prescription bottle at that time said take 1 to 2 every 4 to 6 hours for pain orally. And and I'd left a little bit of those instructions out. I think when I read it, it was like take 1 to 2. That's all I read. and it took off, and then when I didn't have the pills, I got depressed at 15. I couldn't cheer, and that's what I was so passionate about. I was not on the squad anymore. The boyfriend who was a football player, he had somebody else running out on the field with him, and I got another boyfriend, and it was pills is when it started, and it was high school. And then I don't know about you guys, but we also would go into like gas stations, and they had like Boone's Farm, these bottles of like this horrible alcohol, Mad Dog 2020. We would go into the stores in high school and steal, so the addiction of stealing, which conditioned me to my disease and to my using, took off as well. So I started doing those behaviors very young.
Was anyone in your family, did anyone in your family have addiction issues at all that you know of?
Not my immediate family. I did have, cousins who were using, distant cousins, and I'm the oldest of my brothers. I had a younger brother who has died of a heroin overdose. The middle brother, he can buy a 6-pack and leave 3 of them in the fridge until he comes back to visit next Christmas. He's like, who does that? He doesn't. He's not an alcoholic or an addict. My younger brother was, but I was the oldest, and I think it was just poor choices in people and places and attention. I think I was addicted to attention and using people. I think that it was behaviors before it was ever substances.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, actually. And you know what? Like, when I think about it, can you imagine prescribing a 15-year-old like narcotic pain medication? Like, when I think about that, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? What kind of doctor would do that? But it's just so crazy. Like, back in that day, not that you're old, I'm just assuming, like, what I mean, that we are similar in age. But because I remember when the pill mill days started, right? Like, when you could just get pills and it was like no big deal. They just prescribed bottles of it to you completely, like, whatever. And then, we all got addicted to it. But I'm just wondering, like, so did you get sick?
So I am from Logan, West Virginia. And I don't know if you've heard the stories about the pill mills in West Virginia, but the prescriptions were prescribed to children. They were prescribed to everybody because the pill mills were so strong there. And that's where I think, Big Pharma set up shop because there wasn't any laws against it. A lot of people became addicted in West Virginia. We're poor, coal country. Coal mines were starting to shut down. And the prescriptions were like Tylenol 3 and Tylenol 4. Tylenol with codeine. It wasn't, I didn't get Oxycontin at that time, but I learned how to get it later. Being in the environment, being in the environment and around people and seeing how they got it. And once I was introduced to those opiates, I just wanted more.
Yeah, I feel like at 15, I was still getting like liquid medicine.
I'm 45. I'll just be up front. You could go into the drugstores and get bottles of codeine cough syrup over the counter.
No,
you didn't need a prescription for them.
Wild.
Oh yeah, those were the days.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell you, your sponsee is on here. They said that's my kick-ass sponsor. kkhe is on here.
Yay, that's my baby.
Broward is in the house. Yeah. Okay, so you had this experience, right, where you took pills, you knew that you liked it, you knew that you were depressed when you didn't have it. So did you go seeking more after that?
I sought more, but it wasn't necessarily in pills. It was, again, in attention and attitudes and behaviors. And I had a very holier than thou, I'm better than you. I was drop dead gorgeous. I had a kick. Can we cuss on here? I had a kick-ass body. I was a cheerleader, and I liked the attention of being a cheerleader. When I lost that, I had to start seeking that attention elsewhere. And so I started dating guys who sold drugs. And so the pills turned into cocaine. And then the cocaine turned into fast life and fast money.
Yeah.
And the fast life, fast money, cocaine, then people are trading us pills for cocaine, for crack. They're smoking crack and we're snorting powder. And I had snorted so much powder that I have a deviated septum. Like, you can stick a string up one side of my nose and pull it out the other and, do this. And looking back, that we got the pills, like, traded them. We would take pills and give them cocaine, and we would start snorting like Oxycontin, 80s at the time, where you licked the coating off and you crushed them up and got sick.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, then I got sick, and I kept doing it. It was like, oh, that must be a good one. Let's do it again. And would continue doing this until, like, my nose would bleed, and I would stay up because you can't. If it wasn't for the amount of powder that I snorted, then the pills probably would have killed me, And
Right.
So my poly substance use just continued to rear its head in many different ways. I drink alcohol to come down from cocaine, and then marijuana and pills and Xanaxes and everything you can think of. We didn't have a whole lot of meth in West Virginia at that time, but I was told that a geographical change would cure me, and my family sent me to Florida. And oh my goodness, Florida was not the place to send me.
I was like, not that geographical change.
They sent me down here, and there was like a drug dealer on every corner. They all had big fancy cars and rims and necklaces, and they wore their hats a little bit crooked, and you know, nice clothes, and that wasn't what the drug dealers back home looked like. You know, we were all poor, and it was one big party when I got to Florida, and it never stopped. And then I got in trouble. There was like a reverse sting operation with the law, and they tried to arrest me, and I was like, "Don't you know who my daddy is?" And they were like, "We don't give a shit." And they took me to jail. I ended up getting out of jail and doing like this pretrial intervention for the first time I was ever arrested, and with drug charges, and I completed successfully. And I continued to do the same things that got me in trouble, hang out with the same people and make the same choices and use the same drugs. And my mom couldn't take it anymore. I ended up going back to West Virginia, and I got with a guy who I graduated kindergarten and high school with. And the drugs were, we were going to Columbus, and we were running drugs. And, you know, I'm like his main chick in the front seat of the car, and we're dope running, and we're high. And he's got a kid, and the kid was taken away from him, and I'm keeping the kid, and he's having sex with the baby's mama who's smoking crack. Wow. And I thought, you want to be with a crackhead? And so I went in and stole all of his dope and money, and I went to a place and got high trying to hurt him and created a monster. And that was in 2002. And decided I wanted to leave him. I couldn't live like that anymore. I was just depressed. It was a horrible cycle. We were fighting, you know, he was banging my head against the kitchen cabinets. And it was just abusive. It was domestic violence. I would hit him, you know, I'm stealing his dope. His mom's stealing his dope and giving it to me. She knows what's going on. The kid's in the middle of all of it. And the disease is just, it's rampant in so many ways. And I decided to leave West Virginia and come back to Florida. And that night we got into it. When I got out of his truck, he ran me over.
No. How did that happen?
Well, he says I jumped in front of the truck. I don't know. I was too high to really remember. I mean, yeah. But he did run me over from foot to head, and he left me in a puddle of blood in the snow. And he didn't stop. God. And my mom got a phone call, and she said, you know, that they called her and told her I was in the road dying, and she jumped on a flight and came to West Virginia. And I was in a medically induced coma for like a week. I had like braids in my hair, and they had wrapped around the axle of the truck, and it had pulled out. I had these huge bald spots on my head, had the tubes all in me and the respirator, and I remember waking up out of that coma and pulling that tube out, and I was in such a withdrawal that all I wanted was to get high. That's the only thing I could think about.
Wow. So you weren't on like a pain meds or anything in the hospital?
I was, but not, my tolerance was a lot. Lot more than what they were giving me. Yeah, I had just been run over with a car. I was probably on a gelato drip or something. I don't know. I was in a coma. But I know that when I woke up, whatever they were giving me was not enough. Yeah. And my disease told me, you better get something now. And I called him. I called the guy that ran me over.
The guy that ran you over. Oh my goodness.
And he brought me drugs to the hospital.
Wow.
And I, you know, I remember getting out of the hospital, and I had a couple bottles of drugs on me when I was hit. You know, I had like a bottle of pills on me. I think I had like Oxy 80s and 40s. And then I had a bottle of crack. And I got out of the hospital and went to the house, and I was leaving. I had to go get high. I had my shit, and I wanted to go get high. And my mom was like, where are you going? You just got out of the coma. And I was like, I'll be back, you know? And she was desperate, and she brought me back to Florida. And they threw me into rehab, detox. And that was the first of 24 attempts in treatment. So, you know, a lot of people go to treatment and then they get out and they relapse, and they talk down on themselves. You know, I couldn't get it, or I messed up, or I beat myself up, and it took me 24 times in treatment. And 2 of those were behind maximum security prison gates. And,
Wow.
you know, it was like 14 detoxes and 20, you know, different like in and outpatient, but I was actually inpatient, admitted into treatment, either detox or residential, 24 times.
Wow. And when, okay, so I have to ask because this is just so weird. Like I got ran over by my ex too. And still went and talked to him again, like so ridiculous. How did you cut off the relationship with the ex, and when did you realize that that was like a bad idea?
So I didn't. I came to Florida and I went to detox. And I don't know about you, but when you're in detox and you don't want to get clean, you don't stay there very long. So even though I went to treatment 24 times, I didn't finish treatment 24 times. And I left. And I remember going back to West Virginia, back to the same man that had ran me over with a truck. And it was as toxic as ever. It was not a pretty situation. You know, I still had like stitches in my head. I had a perforated bowel. So half of my small intestine was cut out. And I had like staples going up my stomach because I was internally bleeding out of my bottom when they found me. And so half of my small intestine gone. I had like a dislocated shoulder. I had cracked ribs. You know, my knee. I had tire marks on my face and my leg. And I went back to him, and he was supposed to take care of me. He said, you know, come back, I'll take care of you. And the only thing that he took care of was my drug habit. He continued to feed me. And I continued to stay in relationships, even beyond him, over and over and over again, because the drugs were readily available. And I took anything that came along with that relationship, whether it was, you know, abuse, verbally, sexually, physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally. I took the abuse, and I numbed the pain with the drugs. And other relationships, I was shot. I was married once to a guy who I was living in his garage, and his grandmother said, you can't stay here if you're not married. And so we went down to the courthouse and got married. And,
oh boy.
you know, it's really convenient. And he was beating me till I could stick my tongue through my top and bottom lip, and he shot me. And after he shot me, it scared me because it was crippling me to a point where I was scared to leave. And at that time in Florida, we had Hurricane Floyd, and I rode up to West Virginia behind Hurricane Floyd. And my mom was like, your car is going to get blown away. And I thought that would be better than staying in the situation that I was in. So, you know, it was the same guy. It was just a different name and a different face.
Yes. That's so true. Like we repeat those same patterns over and over again until we change, right? Like, okay, so let me ask you a question, because I was in abusive relationships too, and I can relate to that, right? Like the same guy, just a different face over and over. The pattern is the same though. So when you were in these relationships and you were like dealing with the abuse from these different people, did you think that you deserved it, or that you had like done something that had warranted that abuse? Or you just like, do you feel like you like were in love with these people, you know, and you thought that they could change? Or did you just really just not give a fuck because you just wanted to do the drugs? You know what I mean? Or maybe both.
No, it wasn't about deserving it. I could care less. I was, you know, willing participant. I was, you know, ready to accept whatever they dished out as long as you got me high.
Right.
It wasn't about deserving. I had no self-worth, no idea of who I was. I stood for nothing. I fell for anything. And I continued this vicious cycle of just despair. My disease took me to places where, you know, I didn't care. I just wanted to stay high. And my pain tolerance, you know, the level, the amount of pain that I could endure in every way, you know, it took me to a place I was spiritually dead. You know, on the promotion that you all put out, the crackhead to recovery coach, you know, you see in that picture, that was me.
Oh,
you know,
I know.
That was me. I kept my head shaved, and I picked my face. I would stand in the mirror for hours having picking parties. And I think that was part of my coping skills. I had got to the point where I was animalistic. I would make these sounds like, and even in recovery, it took me a long time to break that habit. You know, I would bite on my fingers and bite the skin around my nails. My fingers were so black and my nails were so black when I was using. It was just, you know, I had no identity. I was a drug addict. I was a dope.
Yeah. Yeah, and your before and after pictures, like you sent me all of those pictures before we made the thumbnail. Your before and after pictures are absolutely wild. Like you look like a completely different person today, like such a transformation. And I really like that you just said that about like the picking party being a soothing technique. I never even thought of that before. Like I would stand in the mirror for hours and hours and hours just picking at my face. And then finally I figured out that if I colored, I didn't, mark my face up so bad, but that was probably like a self-soothing skill. I never even thought of it like that.
It was one thing I had control over.
Yeah.
It was one thing that I had control over. And I realize that now because, when, I work a 12-step program, and through working the steps, I identified shortcomings and character defects. And control was very big for me when you never have any, and you want it. And then I looked at places, where did I have control? I had the ability to say, I'm not going to stop getting high today. That was my power. My drug addiction was my power because you couldn't make me quit. I'll show you. That was my mentality. And it was such a sick way of thinking. And it took me to such, bottoms. I kept hitting a bottom and it would have a trap door. I realized that our bottom as addicts is, death. And we can claim our bottom anywhere we want it to be. And I didn't die physically, but spiritually, I was not right. I was not available.
Yeah.
Were you brought up in any kind of like faith in your household?
Yes, I was raised Southern Baptist, conservative Christian. And we went to church every Sunday. My grandma worked in a beauty shop. She ran it. She owned it. We went to the beauty shop before the sun came up and left after the sun went down. We prayed. God was loving. God was caring. I didn't grow up in one of those, God hates you, you're doing wrong type. I had a good upbringing. I'm Southern Baptist from the mountains of West Virginia. Y'all come back now, you hear?
I know. I love your accent.
God bless your heart. If we have time, I'll tell you a joke at the end.
Okay.
But, no, God was good. God is good. It was me that pushed God away and stopped tapping into a power that was bigger than my disease, and my disease was bigger than me. And when I stopped tapping into that love, and for me, God is love. That's all God is. It's, if you ask me to describe God in one word, what would it be? Love. And when I tap into love, which is bigger than that pain and that hate, then I can conquer that pain with love. And that's how I reach addicts and alcoholics and people that are struggling today. It's just with love. You combat it with love. People, how will you know? How would you understand? You'd be surprised. And I don't do a whole lot of self-disclosure if it's, not going to benefit the person that I'm trying to talk to. But I don't care to tell my story and live my recovery out loud. That's what I do. So other people don't have to die and suffer silently.
Yeah.
So what was it that, was the turning point where you did go into this final term of recovery?
I lost my brother in 2018 to a heroin fentanyl overdose. He was the baby. And I had used for so long that I could not use his death as an excuse to get high.
Yeah.
I could not use his death as an excuse to get high because I had been getting high. And I love him. I always have and I always will. And I decided to use his death as a reason to get clean.
Wow.
And to help other people. And there were days that I wanted to give up. And I said, you know what? My brother doesn't have a choice. So I'm going to keep pushing for him. And days that I didn't want to do it for me, I do it for him.
Wow.
And then, my mama crying. Continuously still, the fact that she has buried her baby is heartbreaking. I don't think that any mother or father or grandparents should bury their children. I don't think that anybody should have to bury their children, especially to this. And And so I try to raise awareness and I try to bring hope. And I even went so far as to get this tattoo. See my tattoo?
Oh, is that
It's a fish.
it's a fish, but it kind of looks like it has a bird's tail. Is that
Oh,
right?
it's standing on its fin. So my brother's
Wow.
name is
Okay.
Jonathan Fisher, and he played
Aw.
the Red Gibson, and he wore coattails. That's his coattails. And he wore a top with bunny ears, and he called himself a fancy rabbit.
Oh, I love that.
I put him on my left arm to keep him close to my heart.
Mhm.
And it's a very visible tattoo. I live in South Florida, so I wear tank tops and sleeveless shirts and halter tops, and people ask me about my tattoo. And it's a
Mhm.
great conversation starter. And I get to keep his memory alive, and I get to connect with humans. That's one thing that I never did in active addiction. I never connected with other human beings. And so just little things that start conversations. My favorite form of service to society is, networking. I like to talk to people. I like to reach out to people. I like to make that connection and let them know I see you. I see you and I understand you and I feel you and I love you. And anybody that's out there, you can message me at any time. I let people message me, and don't get me wrong, I have strong boundaries today.
That's right.
You message me inappropriately. I'm happily engaged. I'm getting married in November. And it's the first healthy relationship I've ever had.
Wow.
And I want to talk about that a little bit, because even when I came into, my last treatment center, I do really good institutionalized. So I've got like 28 arrests on my record. I've been in jail more times than I can count. I actually have the chaplain of the jail I went to so many times doing me a PowerPoint of all my pictures, all my mug shots, so that you can see the progression of the disease. And he decided to do that on his own, because I went for a job at the jail, and I was going to be the addiction counselor for the jail program. And they told me no.
Really?
Because
They should have. It's their loss, really, though. It is. That's cool that they have an addiction counselor there, though, because most jails that I know of don't have that.
When I first applied, I said, if I was him, I wouldn't give me the keys either. Even though I've changed, when you look at my record, you're like, that's Katherine Fannin. Oh my gosh, we can't give her the keys.
Oh no.
But I went to my last treatment center. I have a daughter, and she was born high, and I thought they were going to take my baby, and I didn't want to lose her, and so I went through this fit parent program, and I would have pee in a cup in the bathroom. Like, who does that? Who has spare pee laying around so that when they come to drug test you, you'll have it readily available to pass your drug screens. And it was bad, and I'm not going to say this to give anybody ideas, but if you're as sick as I was, know that there's help. But I would like those drip bags, like the IV drip bags that have the cutoff. I would take one and fill it up with pee, and I would tie it around me. I would duct tape it to me to keep it at body temperature. And I would cut the cord, and I would wear dresses so that if I had to lift up my skirt and I had to take that thing to make it drip, a stream would go into a cup. I passed drug tests for years.
Wow.
Like I wore a bag of pee on me constantly so that I could pass drug tests. DCF didn't have a chance with me. My mama took my baby. She said, you'll never see her again. And I would sneak over and take showers in the water hose. Like, it got to the point at the end where I wasn't allowed in the house anymore. She put a bowl of food on the porch for me, and she would not give me a spoon because she didn't want me to cook drugs in her spoon.
Yeah.
And I'd look at my baby through the window, and I had to do something. So I found a program in South Florida where women could take their children with them. And I went, and my mom let me bring her, and I did really well.
How old was your daughter when that happened?
5.
Okay. That's really cool. Yeah.
When I went to the Women and Children's Center, she was 5. And I did really well. And I was supposed to get out May 1st. And they told me on March 15th, you're discharging today. You're going home. And I was like, what? I'm not ready to go home. And I did what they told me, because, again, I do good institutionalized. They told me to go to work and to save my paychecks. And I did that. And then, I was there from November to March. So income tax return comes, and I don't know about you guys, but even though I was a drug addict, I always was able to file income tax returns, because
Yeah.
I was a hard worker.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I got that income tax return, and I put it up. And so when I left, I had a lot of money. I had a couple $1,000s. That was big for an addict like me that couldn't get $20 without getting on her knees. And when I was down there, I wasn't praying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like to have a couple $1,000s, and I went home, and my mom, she had just survived breast cancer, and she had like a mastectomy, and she had tubes coming out of her and pain pills, and nobody was helping her. So I thought I'd go home, take care of my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I was giving her pain pills, and I was taking one and putting it in my pocket when I was giving it to her. And I was thinking, nobody's catching me. I'm not getting caught. But there was nobody to catch me. And my
Right.
disease told me I was getting away with something.
Mm-hmm.
And when my mom ran out of pain pills and she was hurting, I said, well, we need to call the doctor. He didn't give you enough. But the truth was, I had a pocket full of her pain pills. And even though I hadn't taken them yet, I was already planning that relapse.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when she got that prescription, when she called in and got that prescription, and I was going to pick up her prescription, I called my drug dealer and I picked up like 20 blues. And I can't snort a blue without smoking crack. So I had to stop by and get some of that too. And then, I need a fifth of Crown, a bag of weed. And
Right.
I was off. And within 3 weeks, I had lost like 40 pounds.
Wow.
Wow.
And
Well, I just want to stop and say thank you for sharing that part of your story, because I literally cannot tell you how many people I have run into doing service work or just in discussions with people that felt like they needed to leave rehab and go and help their family. Like my mother is sick, or my dad is sick, or somebody and I need to be, or they're old and I need to be there for them. But when we're not ready yet, like we're not ready yet, and like the best thing that we can do is stay and take care of ourselves, because that's what they want us to do. Is the best thing we can do for them. So I'm grateful that you shared that part, because I literally cannot tell you how many times I've heard somebody say that they have to leave to go take care of their family member.
Well, I didn't have to leave for that, but that's what I said I was going to do when I did leave. They had me leaving March 15th instead of May 1st. And when I went home and within 3 weeks relapsed, and within 3 weeks down 40 pounds and totally broke, there was no more money saved.
Wow.
What I remembered was the recovery in South Broward, in Broward County, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, all up and down the Gold Coast. I had met a guy who was in recovery. He had a couple decades clean, and he said he wanted to help me.
Oh yeah.
And I let him help me. He brought me back down here, and I would sit in his car and smoke crack while he went into the meetings. And I stayed with him for about a year, and I stayed very sick with him. And I didn't realize that until I worked my steps. I was never a prostitute, never jumped in cars and walked the streets and solicited people. And when I worked my steps, I realized every time I dated somebody, I prostituted myself. And I stayed there, and I allowed them to beat me, and I allowed them to rape me, and I allowed them to degrade me, and I allowed them to cheat on me, and I allowed them to hurt me because they're getting me high. And I didn't love them. I loved their drugs, and I accepted the things that they brought with that, and I was still doing that in recovery. When I got clean, I'm still with this guy, and I'm still doing the things that I was doing, and I worked 12 steps. And after my first round of steps, I realized that I was the same girl in recovery that I was in active addiction, but now I'm not getting high, and I can't blame it on the drugs. So I got to stop sleeping with guys, and I got to stop stealing out of Walmart, and I got to stop lying to people, and I got to stop degrading myself in every way, because this is not the girl that I got clean to be.
Right.
And then the work started.
So, okay. You have to share this. I remember when my sponsor, I was in same thing in like relationships with guys, just let them treat me like whatever, and she was like, Jamie, you don't deserve that. You are worth more than that. And it didn't click in my brain. Like, when did that click for you? Like, Katherine, you deserve more. Like, you are worthy.
Great sponsorship. And working the steps and applying the spiritual principles behind the steps to all areas of my life. I realized I didn't want to be anybody's whore. I realized I was tired of being somebody's toy. and it was not my job to get your dick hard. That was a medical, dysfunction or something, and you needed to go see a doctor. It didn't matter how much I did. It was not my job. And I was tired of feeling dirty. And my sponsor, worked very diligently with me. I love my sponsor. I love my sponsorship family. I've fired her several times in recovery, but I've still got the same sponsor and kept the same sponsor. Sometimes self-will run riot. But, my sponsor's got 30 years and she's been, through a lot of things. And even though I don't agree with a lot of things that she's been through and the way she's went through them, I've learned through her mistakes as well.
Right.
So, I realized that, I didn't want to be with this man anymore. We had gotten to a physical altercation, and you are not going to hit me. We broke up, and he left, and we weren't living together anymore. And my sponsor put me on this man band.
Jamie, I think you went on a man band too, didn't you?
Yes, I sure did. My sponsor put me on one too, and then I failed at it. I was like, no, you know what you're talking about. And then something happened. I dated this guy with 3 months in recovery. Oh, he knows the Bible. We're perfect together. And then we broke up, and he relapsed. And she's like, "Are you ready? Are you ready now to listen to me?" And
so the man band was supposed to be, stay away from guys and sex for a year, work on yourself. And she told me to write down everything I want out of a relationship. Write it down on a piece of paper. So I'd get my paper and I'd write it down. And I put all this stuff down that I wanted. I want attention. I want to feel special. I want to be a trophy wife. I want to be taken out. I want to be showed off. I want to be made to feel good. I want to be, I want somebody that's loyal, somebody that's faithful, and somebody that's good to me, and somebody that deserves me. And I had all these things on this list. And she said, now start working on that list with yourself.
Yes.
Everything that's on that list, one by one, you start giving it to you. You give it to yourself. And I said, well, who's going to make me, come? And she said, you are. Work on it. And I had to learn, because I had a very distorted thought about sex. To me, it was a duty. I had to learn what was really passion and what was intimacy and what was love and what felt good. And I had to be able to identify what I wanted when it came to sex, because it was such a duty for me for such a long time. And again, I wasn't a prostitute or a whore, but every relationship I was in, I did things as a prostitute or whore would, religiously and faithfully. And then I got real honest, and I was still using that man that I had broke up with. He would bring me lunch to work. It was really convenient. If I didn't have enough money for my bills, he would send me money. And, whatever I wanted, I would call him and ask for it. And of course he would bring it. And now I'm clean, and I don't look like I looked when I came into recovery. So, I've got this bright red hair, and I got these, pouty little lips, and my skin's cleared up, and I glow, and I got a good attitude, and I could work it. And, and I knew I didn't want to be with him. I knew I had a resentment towards him, and I knew I was not going to be able to work through that resentment until I got honest with myself, another human being, and God. And I told my sponsor, I've got to end it. And so I supposedly gave everything back that he had given me, except for the couple rings and a couple this and a couple of that. And he kept calling, and she, what are you holding on to? And I said, well, I've got this and that. She said, put it in a box. And her and one of my sponsee sisters took me to his house, and I gave him everything back. And he was mad and shaken, and I was mad and shaken. And as we drove away, I started crying, and my sponsor said, what's wrong? And I said, I can't use him anymore. I was really upset because I had given away my power.
Yeah. God, that makes so much sense to me.
And after that, she said, no men, no sex. And me too, Jamie. I relapsed a couple times on that man being my dad. Hotel rooms. And I thought I was doing it right because I bought the hotel room, and I didn't need you to buy me dinner. And I'm doing all these things. So you just come over and give it to me. And then I realized that afterwards, that's not what I wanted. What I wanted was somebody that I could bring into my home and into my heart. And she told me to start dating. And as I started dating, she told me, date everybody. And I thought, well, God, you just turned me from being a whore. Now you're telling me to be a whore. She said, no, I'm not. She said, I'm telling you to go out with everybody. Everybody that you are attracted to or you find remotely, interesting, go out with them. You drive your own car. You pay for your own food. You take your own money. You leave by yourself. You go home by yourself. And you have a conversation with them, maybe over the phone afterwards, and see if you can actually hold a conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
About real life topics. See if you have the same views, religious views, political views.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even have political views. I was a convicted felon. I had never voted in my entire life. What the hell are we going to talk politics? I know nothing. But the more I stayed clean, the more I learned, and the more I realized I do have a voice. Mm-hmm. And so I went and I got my rights back, and I had, for the first time in history, voted. And I don't want somebody who doesn't see things the way I do. I think it's important to have that peace within your home. And then, I got into this strong, empowered woman. I went to school. I became at first I went to Broward College, which is a community college for human services, and I specialized in drug addiction treatment. Mm-hmm. And I'm in class, I'm 45, and I'm in school with all these young kids. Mm-hmm. They're like dually enrolled in high school and college. I barely walked across the stage from high school, and you've got people who are enrolled in high school and college. Like, these kids are smart. They got it going on. And I got really discouraged, and my disease started to rear its head and say, you can't do this. And in the meetings that I go to, it says, practice these principles in all your affairs.
That's right.
So I went to school and I started practicing spiritual principles. I started being honest when I needed help, and started having hope that if I applied myself, I could do it, and faith that I could do it, courage, integrity, doing my own damn homework, I graduated Phi Theta Kappa National Member of the Year, 4.0.
That's awesome.
And decided, after working in treatment, no offense to anybody listening, but I didn't want to be a therapist because they make shit money.
It's true. Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to make $50,000 a year. Therapists give their lives and their time to helping people, and they don't get paid what they're worth, like school teachers, and that's my opinion. You can believe what you want to believe. But I really wanted to love what I do, so I never had to work a day in my life. And I decided to become a recovery coach. And I went through the Addictions Academy, who I'm now employed with, and I help other people go back to school. And if you're an addict or an alcoholic, you can go back to school for free. Message me. I'll help you get in. I don't get any money for it. This is what I do, help build your dreams. And
that's so, wait, I got to tell you something. I sent my friend to the Addictions Academy the other day. I don't know if I told you this or not, but you posted it on your Facebook. Oh, you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she told me, she's like, they're going to help me get it for free and everything. So it's really, really cool what you guys are doing.
If you have a substance use disorder or a mental health disorder, you go get your psych eval from treatment or from your psychiatrist, or even if you need vocational rehab to refer you out and pay for it, they'll set you up an appointment and take care of it. And they'll pay for you to go back to school 100%. And I went back to school and I became an IMAC. So I'm an International Master Addiction Recovery Coach. I specialize in sex addiction, gambling addiction, food addiction. I'm certified harm reduction, internet addiction. And these things were really important to me because when I got clean, I got fat and I wanted to learn how to be healthy. And then I have a 10-year-old who likes to game and who's on her tablet. So internet addiction. And, I didn't have my first cell phone until I was 23, and so to learn how to have a healthy relationship. I'm also a family addiction recovery coach because I think it's important to meet the family, because the family suffers so much with the addict, and to heal us as a family unit and break generational curses. Like, that was so important for me. Mm-hmm. And, growing up, I can remember, get up, it's time to go. And you wake up like it's a fucking fire alarm. And,
yes.
I want to wake my daughter up, like, with love, and, it's time to get up, and instead of yelling at her. And I still, practicing it in my home is the hardest place for me. Mm-hmm. And I want to be real honest about that. I struggle when it comes to not yelling at my daughter when she at 10. Okay. And she's going through her little, 10-year-old
Yep.
phase, um, sasses me and talks back to me. I want to say, shut the fuck up. Who are you talking to? Do you know who I am? Like, do you know where I've been and what I've done? I fought 3 girls at one time. I will whoop your little ass. And those are the thoughts that come through my head. And no, you're not going to do the dishes, but you're on my internet, on the tablet that I pay for. And so learning that healthy boundary in that family structure and how to rehabilitate the family, because our children suffered with us. My mama suffered with me. The things that I have done in my active addiction, the drugs are gone, but those conditions that my disease conditioned me with, those conditions are still very much alive and rampant, and I have to keep them. It's a daily reprieve. I have to wake up, I do my gratitude list. I thank God for where I'm at and what I have, because I have this little saying in my head: if the only thing I have left today is what I gave thanks for yesterday,
Yes.
what would I be left with? Did I forget to pray yesterday? Would it all be gone? Because I do have a loving God. My God is loving, but my God wants me to remember that it's because of him that I have everything.
Right.
And I went back to school and I became an international master addiction recovery coach. And I did that through the Addictions Academy.
So tell me, what's the difference between like what a therapist would do in treatment and then what you do, or what a recovery coach does?
So a therapist is going to meet the client where they are, and they're going to go back. Tell me what happened. Tell me how that made you feel. Tell me what went on in that situation. Okay. A recovery coach is going to meet you where you are. Tell me 5 minutes about why you're here. Now let's move forward. What are your recovery goals? How can I help you meet them? How do you want to identify them? So I meet the client where they are and we move forward, kind of like your sponsor would do. But, I don't think we need to keep rehashing the past. If you have some resentments or something that you need to work through, we'll work through it. But a recovery coach is here to move you forward. And and I'm also a certified life coach. So, there's many areas. If you need to have career coaching, if you need to have self-esteem coaching, if you need to have finance coaching, there's a lot of things that I help people with that I'm certified to do now. So it's whatever you want your recovery to look like. For me, it's a 12-step program that's total abstinence. But if I have a friend that's putting a needle in their neck, I'd much rather help them get to the harm reduction clinic and get on maintenance and, take a Suboxone and get on a taper plan than to go out and overdose and die.
I agree.
You need me to take you to an RCO, a community recovery organization, to pick up some Narcan? I will. I'll take you. I'm not going to take you to cop dope. I'm not going to watch you use. But if you need me to take you to get something that might save your life, I'll do that for you. And you can call me if you don't want to use, but don't call me when you're high.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear the babble and the drunk and the high and the, if you can't hold a conversation with me because you're nodding off, you need to call me back. But call me before you use, and we'll work our way around that. That's not the solution. That was the solution until it stopped working. But the real problem is underneath that drug use.
Right. Yeah.
But even, just through the Addictions Academy, I also became a certified addiction counselor. So I finished my IMAC and got those credentials. And to have credentials behind my name, I was like, I remember when I went to treatment all those times, these therapists had like alphabets behind their name. LCSW, MHAD, and all these like alphabets. And I was like, I don't even know what it means. Well, now I got some that I don't even know what my own shit means. I gotta look it up. Like, how'd I get that? What does that one for? But I became a certified addiction counselor, and I finished my schooling last year, and I set Tuesday for my state exam and passed. So I am a licensed certified addiction counselor.
That's
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah, congratulations. That's amazing. To go from where you've been to where you are is just such a powerful and inspiring story. I'm so glad that you came on with us tonight. Okay, if anybody in the comments wants to ask any questions, if you want to know about anything, drop your questions in the comments. We got about 10 minutes left. There have been several comments that came in that said, what is this Is this like a international thing, or do you only have to be in Florida to do this addiction counselor thing?
No, you can get certified internationally. So what I'm going to tell everybody is I'm on Facebook. You can follow me. It's Katherine
Mhm.
Fannin, the same as my name in the bar there. You can send me a message or just comment, because I share a lot of reels and posts. Right now we have 50% off. So if you want to do the family recovery coach course, it's like $1,000. Right now it's 50% off. If you want to go ahead and do that, I can get you in that. That's only until the end of July. But vocational rehabilitation, I can help you get signed up with them, and I can manage your case because I am the director of outreach. And what I can do is walk you through the process. I'm not
That's
going to ask you for
amazing.
any money for doing that. Another thing
Mhm.
that I help people do is level 2 background exemptions through Department of Children and Families and ACA, the Agency for
Mhm.
Healthcare Administration. And I do that service as well. So if there's something that you need to ask me a question about, I will not do your whole exemption for you. Okay. But if you
Mhm.
need to ask me, how do you do that? I'm a 28-time convicted felon. And
Perfect.
I have a level 2 background exemption through Department of Children and Families, and I'm working on my ACA now. I sent my last 2 papers off today. So,
Perfect. I'm gonna send you my letter after this, and you can read it and
yes,
tell me what you
yes,
think, okay?
absolutely. I'll walk you through that process. I'll walk anyone through, because we can get better together.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, somebody else asked, and they've actually been asking the whole time. Sorry, Jared, it took so long. How much clean time, or what is your clean date?
My clean date is 11/11/2019. So
Oh, 11/11. I love that.
Nice.
So this November 11th, I will be celebrating 4 years, and I'm also getting married on my 4 years.
No way.
Aw.
I thought 11/11 was a good day for me, so we're going to keep it going. Keep that energy.
Oh, that's
Double
cool.
celebration. Awesome.
Okay, somebody else asked, yes, I will drop her Facebook. I'll do it right now, actually, while you answer the next question. Somebody else asked, do you go to meetings?
I do. I have a home group. My home group is at 7 p.m. in Davie, Florida. It's called Bitter Ends. It's a meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. I am on the South Broward Area Convention Committee of Narcotics Anonymous. I'm the auction chair.
Mhm.
I do service at a regional level in Narcotics Anonymous. That's just who I am. That's where I stay clean. That is not the only way to get clean and stay clean. I do not discriminate. If you want to do celebrate recovery, if you want to go to church, if you whatever works for you, let's live. Let's live. Whatever works for you, I will support you right where you are. Um, I'm always available on social media. And I do have very healthy boundaries. I go to bed about 9 o'clock and I wake up about 5:30. So don't message me all night long or I'll mute you. um, but Jared, I just see your friend request. I will accept when I get off of here. But anybody can reach out to me at any time. Even if we're not friends and you send me a message, I'll see the message request. I'm just an addict trying to stay clean and trying to help others, get clean, stay clean, and live clean. And I'm in the first healthy relationship I've ever been in my life, with myself, with God, with a significant other, with my daughter, with my sponsor, with my friends. I'm a friend today, and I'm the friend that I want to have in return. I want a good friend, so I am a good friend. And as far as society, anything that I can do to make the world a better place, I'll do it. So don't think that you can't call me or ask me for help. Anybody that wants to go back to school and become a recovery coach, a life coach, a food coach, food addiction coach, sex addiction coach. I'm not really comfortable doing the sex addiction recovery coaching, only because it's hard for me. It's
Yeah.
hard for me from where I've been, and to think of how other people can learn to identify how they harmed people who were like me. And so sometimes I do refer those clients off, but I have a lot of people that I can refer you to. And if it's not your overlying addiction, then I will help you work through certain things, because sometimes in active addiction, we do sell our bodies. Sometimes we do get involved in porn and things like that. Those I'm okay to help you with. I have a problem when people come to me, like they fantasize about children and stuff that, there's certain things that really I can't do.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit right with my soul. but it doesn't mean that you can't get better and that there's not help available, because there is, and I can refer you out to anybody, and I don't charge anything for that, you know. One of my favorite forms of service is networking and collaborating with other people in the community and helping people. And so, you know, you send me a message and you say, you know, hey, I was wondering about that schooling you were talking about. I will help you get on board with vocational rehabilitation near you. And I will give you our VR number, and I will get you signed up and set up. And all it's going to do is make me feel good about myself. So if you're willing to do the work, I'm willing to reap the rewards with you.
That's how we met, through networking.
Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, I just posted her profile in my Facebook comments, so you guys can find her that way. Ashley wants to know, are you ever worried about going back to addiction, like when you're stressed or overwhelmed or depressed, etc.?
So I'm always going to be an addict. Using drugs, no, does not cross my mind. Using people, using money, using sex, using food, using, you know, things that'll take my mind off of the real problem, especially when I don't get what I want when I want it, or you hurt my feelings. You know, that to me, that ego crusher is a great way to self-sabotage. But no, you know, I have I bought a 2022 Bronco. You know, I waited a long time for it. If I have to go mudding or four-wheeling, I'll do that. If I need to go lay on the beach, I'll go do something that makes me feel good about myself, and it not be. I've learned that drugs were a false high. That didn't get me where I want to be. Becoming the person that I've wanted to be has gotten me higher than any drug ever could. You know, when I pick somebody up and I take them to a meeting and I see that light come on, it does something for my soul, you know, deep, you know, that high. But to use today, I don't even know. I wouldn't. I've stopped smoking cigarettes and stopped vaping in recovery. You know, tonight I made shrimp fried rice, and instead of using rice, I used rice cauliflower. I try to practice healthy habits in all my affairs because I don't want to be old and miserable. And, you know, I got high I did a life sentence in active addiction. I got high for 26 years. For 26 years, I did a life sentence. Most people that do a life sentence, when they walk out of prison, they're scared shitless to go back. You know, they don't go out and start robbing again. They sit their ass down and they start living. I made it. You know, I made it out of that life sentence of active addiction. And I don't want to go back to that prison, that bondage I put myself in. Not today. And it's a daily reprieve. You know, maybe tomorrow, but not today.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions, Jamie? Anything you can think of?
No, I mean, that was just like amazing. Like that was the ending was like so redemptive. It just like set my soul on fire. Like it was just like, it was very, very energizing, very exciting. I'm so super proud of you, especially because I feel like we have a lot of the same things in the past. So I was like, oh, she's telling my story.
And, you know, I will come, you know, my favorite form of service is networking. If you ever want, you know, me to come to your home group and speak for me, and for the viewers, I don't care who you are or where you are. If you're in Pennsylvania and you want me to come to your home group, send me a message and send me the address. And if I can get up there, you know, I'll take my truck and we'll come.
That's so cool.
But know that I may ask you in return to come speak for me in my area.
Yeah, well, I just thank you so much. I mean, honestly, like it's crazy because when you're telling your story, I know a lot of Jamie's story. So like I'm thinking like, wow, Jamie's been through like some really similar stuff, but then some stuff that you share, like I've been through some really similar stuff. So it was just really cool for you to share your story tonight. And you're right, Jamie, it was so redemptive, like coming from where you were to where you are now, and just like how empowered you are and how confident of a woman you are today. Like that's what this is about. And I just thank you so much for coming and sharing your story tonight.
You're welcome. I only touched the iceberg, so maybe we'll do a part 2 one day. And we'll
okay.
Everybody coming back.
Yeah, I would love that.
Thank you. Here every Monday.
Okay. Good night, everybody. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.